All right, so much art history and never enough time to cover it all. So let's go run through the art museum.
Catholic strays.
Okay, let me have your attention, please. I need it quiet. Shh, quiet, please. Shh. I have finished grading Cy Park's beasts, and I have started grading yours. I'm close to halfway through grading your beasts. So hopefully I can get finished. If not this afternoon, this definitely this weekend. And I will as soon as I finish grading them, I will post the grades in D2L. All right, that's where they'll be first. All right. All right, we're gonna review for our Unit 4 exam for the Part 1. This is before the war, modern art before the war, before the wars. All right. Whoops. But my study tip to you guys is that you study in the pool so nobody can see your tears. All right. To tell you how this test is going to work, we're going to part one is going to be multiple choice. There's going to be 20 questions instead of 40. They're going to be worth 2 points each for 40 points total. Then we are going to have our slide ID. And instead of 20 images, I'm going to give you 10. In fact, they're already posted in D2L. And I posted I posted the artist, title, date, and style, as well as the image that I'm going to use on the test. All right. So it should all be there in one document. And from that list of 10, I'm going to choose 2 at random with the dice. And I'm going to ask you to write down the artist, the title, the date, and the style. Each of those things is going to be 5 points each for a total of 40 points for the slide ID. Then we will have one unknown image that'll be worth 20 points. So 40 plus 20 is 100. Any questions about the test so far? All right. So let's get into the stuff that's going to be on the test. All right, there's going to be a lot of non-answers in this review. All right, but like abstract expressionism is a style of art I have not yet talked about. All right, abstract expressionism is for part 3 of modern art, but it's on this test. It shows up. Akkadian landscape, I definitely did talk about.
Isn't it Arcadian?
I think I put both in the, let's see, let's just ACADI. No, I think you're right. Let's try Arcadian. Yeah. All right.
I've been paying attention.
Yeah. All right. That is a typo. Arcadian landscape.
We just have to know the features and traits in it.
All right. So you need to know the definition of it. Right. So that, yeah. All right. Anyway, anybody have any questions about Arcadian landscape? You guys remember what that means? All righty then. Arbitrary color is on the test. All right, arbitrary color is imaginative color. In fact, I have arbitrary color up on those artworks that are up on the wall. You see people with yellow skin, and there's a person up there with red and polka dotted hair. That's Arcadian color. Arbitrary color.
So it's kind of like false.
Right, it's imaginative or creative or emotional colors.
Oh, like made up patterns.
Yeah, right. So which style of art that we talked about used arbitrary color the most? They all used arbitrary color.
The first one.
Yes, it was the first one. Not Cubism. Cubism was not the first one we looked at. Fauvism. Fauvism used it the most. Cubism used it, yes. And German Expressionism used it, yes. But Fauvism was like, yeah, exploded color. It was like, yeah. All right, the Armory Show scandal. There's a question about that one. What was the scandal? And it really wasn't, I mean, I don't want to say a scandal. It's just like a shocking, the Armory Show was shocking to American audience. That's the scandal. Yes, right. And then what artwork was the most shocking of them all?
The chair.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right. Atmospheric perspective pops up on the test. We discussed that in Unit 1. Avant-garde is on the test. You should know that.
What do we have to know about that? Just
I think the definition. Let me look at my notes. Yeah, I have nothing next to it. So I think that's the definition you need to know. Or, you should know if I gave you, I think it's the definition. All right, Cezanne is on the test. Yes, I did talk about Cezanne a lot during this unit. All right, he was in Unit 3, but he was very influential to artists in Unit 4.
What do we have to know about the influential?
Yes.
On what style?
Uh,
Was it both?
no. In fact, the Fauves really loved Gauguin, like the bright colors of Gauguin. But it's the Cubists that were really interested in Cezanne. And then they were influenced by Cezanne, and everybody was influenced by the Cubists. So this guy, Cezanne, without him, modern art would be very, very different today. It would have gone in a different direction. Or somebody else would have done what he did. I don't know. But he's one of my favorite artists because he is so influential on modern art. All right, chronophotography is on the test. So I talked about that during the last few days. Yeah, if you can figure out what chrono means, you can figure out what chronophotography means. Claude Monet is on the test. I did not talk about him much in this unit. He's from Unit 3. Collage is on the test. Yes, we did talk about collage.
What do we have to know?
Do you remember when I showed you the 2001 clip? The monkeys,
Oh, yeah.
all right? That was because I was talking about collage, all right? Collage was a groundbreaker. It changed the direction of art. It was, when artists figure out they can put the actual thing on the artwork, then what's real? Is it a realistic drawing of the newspaper, or is it the actual newspaper on the actual artwork? So we get into like this whole what is real. It's done in the very abstract way, but it's the actual newspaper. How can you get more real than that? You can't. But collage is pasting things. To us, like, we do collage in kindergarten,
Yeah.
right? So to us, it's normal. It's like babies do this, but in 1912, it was a total game changer. There's that meme of like somebody's head exploding. That this is what collage did. All right, you need to know a lot about cubism on the test. There are more than one question about cubism.
So we just need to know if it's influence.
That is one of the things that it is one of the most, it's very influential on the rest of modern art. I also want you to know the subject matter of cubism.
Oh, it's around. Wait, which one is that again? It goes around the subject. The motions around the subject.
That is, yes. Cubism goes around the subject, but what is that subject that is typical in Cubist art? Instruments is one, yes.
Wait, what's the other one?
Yeah, what else do Cubists make artworks of? People, yes. And people with instruments and still lifes.
Oh,
All right, this is all traditional subjects. We looked at how the Cubists are taking traditional subjects and completely portraying them in a different way. I also want you to know the characteristics of Cubism. How would you know a Cubist artwork if you saw one?
Faded colors.
Dull colors is a definite giveaway, but there's other paintings with dull colors. So,
abstract.
right, it's abstract. It's the faceted images, the faceted shapes and forms. All right, there were a couple different kinds of cubism. There was analytical, synthetic. There was salon cubism. I didn't talk much about salon cubism. And there was another kind called orphism, which is later on in this review. So what's the difference between analytical and synthetic and salon cubism?
Is synthetic the one that the picture's more definite in? Or is that?
Yeah, the synthetic is the one that has the newspaper on it. It's the one where they actually glued the stuff. The oilcloth that they put on, right? That had the picture of the wicker. But we saw one that had rope that was all around it, an actual rope. We saw another one that had the label of a wine bottle glued on it.
Analytical is the first one, right?
Analytical is the first one. That's the one that the subject matter is traditional. It's the portrait of a person or a person playing guitar or the still life. Synthetic was only still lifes that we looked at. And then salon cubism is a lot easier to look at. You can see there's more colors, and it was it was clear. You can see the people clearer in it. It was just more pleasant, not as harsh as cubism, analytical or synthetic. All right, Distille is a style of art I have not yet taught you. That's on our next part of modern art. Terblaureiter. What's the English for that? The blue rider.
Like the blue rider.
The blue rider, like a person that rides a horse. All right. I want you to know the characteristics of that, or what's the subject matter of the Blue Rider?
Horses.
Horses, yes. Horses, and what else?
Riding horses.
No, those were in the like before it became the Blue Rider, it did have people riding horses. I know it's confusing, but the actual Blue Rider did not have people riding horses.
Spiritual.
Yes, there was the other. There's two main artists. One artist did horses and animals. That's where I was trying to go with that. The other one did spiritual stuff and music. Very abstract. It was, if not almost non-objective, and some of it became non-objective. And I don't know why non-objective isn't on the test. I need to go back and add that in for next year. All right. De Broek and Nietzsche and woodcuts.
What do you have to know about that?
Let's see. Nietzsche was a philosopher, and he talked about the bridge. I want you to know what the bridge means. What was the bridge?
Blending old German and
No. Although they did do that. They blended old and modern German art, but no. What was the bridge that Nietzsche talked about? Like, why would you name yourself after a bridge? I mean, like, what's the point of a bridge?
Connecting?
Yeah, well, so yeah, it connected. Nietzsche talked about a metaphorical bridge that connected the history of humankind to the future of humankind, and we're in the middle. We are not primitive like we used to be, but we're not the Superman that we're going to be, and that's what he called like the ultimate journey of man to become this ultimate being called a Superman, not the Superman in a red cape Superman, but the fully evolved human being that's a Superman. Does that make sense?
Mhm. That's the bridge.
That's the bridge. We're in the middle. We're connected. We're the connectors from the primitive man to the Superman.
Do you have to know things about the other two?
No, you just need to know what the bridge is. And then the woodcuts is the De Broeke were the ones that did the woodcuts. And the reason why they were drawn to woodcuts is because German woodcuts are a big part of German art history. If you remember back in the Renaissance era, there's the German artists that did woodcuts. But not like De Broek did them. All right, dynamism. I think the title of the artwork is "Dynamism of a Dog on a Leash," but that's on the art. That's on the test.
You have to know that it's a subject.
Yeah, and I want you to know its connection to photography.
Oh,
Yeah, because of the movement is one, because it has that chrono photography effect to it. But there's another thing about the painting that connects it to photography. It's a close up. It's cropped. Fauvism is on the test. I want you to know the characteristics of Fauvism. How would you know it if you saw it? Yeah. Like a box of crayons exploded. I want you to know the meaning of the word Fauvism. or fauve.
Wild beast.
It's a wild beast. Futurism is on the test. What country did futurism come from?
Italy.
Italy is correct.
First thing on the future is Italy.
All right, now what did the futurists, what shocking thing did the futurists want to do?
Capture movement.
What shocking thing did they want to do? That I'm very glad that they never did. Well, the war happened anyway, so they were pro-war. That was shocking. There was another thing that's shocking that they wanted to accomplish. Has to do with museums and libraries. Really?
They wanted to like take all of them.
They wanted to burn down the libraries and flood the museums?
Oh. They're wild.
Yes. They wanted to get rid of the past so they can focus on the future. All right. All right. Now, there's going to be another question of futurism. Listen carefully. I'm going to give you a list of words. It's going to be 5 words. I'm going to ask you which word would the futurist be most attracted to? So you need to be able to do that. Like, what were they really interested in? All right, George Seurat is on the test. We talked about him last unit. I did not talk about him this unit, except for just a very little bit. All right, German Expressionism is on the test. There are 2 main kinds of German Expressionism. Do you remember what they are? Die Brücke is one, and the Blue Rider is the other. History painting is on the test. You should be familiar with that. I've been talking about history painting since Unit 2.
Did this unit have history?
Nope, I did not talk about history painting during this unit. You should know what linear perspective is. Optical color. Optical color is the opposite of arbitrary color.
So real.
Yes. If you take a picture and don't do anything to that picture, that's optical color. If you take a picture and start playing around with filters and changing the colors, that's arbitrary color.
I have I'm just kidding.
All right, Orphism. Orphism is a splinter of Cubism, and I was talking about Orphism with my other class. This is Orphism. All right. And it's yeah, especially like this one right here. It's Cubism, but there's really no subject here. It's just color. Here's another one.
So would you classify as cubism?
Yeah, it's an offshoot of Cubism.
You just have to know what it looks like.
I think it's just one of the extra answers. But when you see it on the test, when you see the word on the test, you should, have a picture of it in your mind. All right, Paul Gauguin. He was influential of the Fauvism. The Fauvists liked his bright colors. Remember yellow crucifix?
No.
Right. The angel and the guy wrestling on the red ground.
Oh.
Right. The Fauvists liked that kind of color. All right. Pop art shows up on the test. I have not talked about pop art. That's part 3 of modern art. That's after the wars. The term reception piece shows up on the exam. I talked about that in Unit 2. Yes. Suprematism pops up on the test. I'm going to talk about that in the next modern art section, between the wars. Surrealism, I'm also going to talk about in the next modern art section, between the wars. And Van Gogh, that name pops up on the test. I talked about him last unit.
But like, did he not influence?
I didn't talk about him much at all this unit.
I thought he influenced some. I thought he influenced.
Yes, he did influence some of the Fauves, but the real influence of the Fauves was Gauguin, right? And his brushstrokes were influential to modern art. Like all the post-impressionists, I mean, that's like, the post-impressionism, you can kind of conceive of that as like early modern art. Some people, I've read some art historians say that realism is the first style of modern art. But all right, so that finishes us for all these terms. Does anybody want me to go back and define any of these again? All right, on the test, everything is in half. The number of questions is in half. The time to look at your sketchbook will be cut in half. So you have 1 minute to look at your sketchbook instead of 2. And the points for extra credit are in half. All right, so the flashcards, it would be 2.5 points, 3 points for extra credit. All right. And that's also because we're going to take 3 tests for modern art. So you get to use your notes for 1 minute for one test, 1 minute for another test, and 1 minute for another test.
What do you think those tests are going to be?
Okay, so I don't know if we're going to finish modern art before the end of Lone
That's
Star.
what I was thinking.
All right, but if it happens that we can get through, and I don't think we will, but because we have 8 art styles to get through for before the next test. But if we get through all 3, then your third exam will be the final exam for Lone Star. If we don't get through all 3, then maybe the second or this one will be your final exam grade.
I was
Right.
wondering.
And so then if we don't finish before the end of Lone Star, we will continue for high school. And your final exam for high school is pretending to be interested and taking notes because I'm recording this for the summer. Yes, ma'am. All right, that was a good question. Any other questions?
Do we have to do 3 detailed drawings or just one?
It's one detailed drawing. Oh, that's another good question. All right, so I had a big talk with my art 3, my third period. for the detailed drawing. So this is 1 unit for modern art. So it's 1 detailed drawing. We are going to get into some very simplistic artwork for this. There's a painting I'm going to talk about that's called Black Square. Guess what it's a painting of? A black square. All right. There's another one that's a white square on a white background. All right. Now, if you choose a very simplistic painting, it's still the expectation that you spend 2 hours on it. So if you are choosing a very simplistic painting, that means you need to break out the paints or paint it on canvas or something to show that you spend 2 hours on it. All right. So it's your choice of what you want to do. All right. So I was thinking about, limiting it to like Fauvism, like, picking a Fauvis painting to do, or, something that has like some kind of substance like that. Maybe even like Surrealism has some very traditional kind of looking. But if you choose a simplistic artwork, it needs to obviously show 2 hours worth of work.
And if our piece is it, it's like, our piece, like if it's in unit 3.
No, we're talking about unit 4.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
What was your?
Picasso.
Yeah. Which artwork did you do for your? Right.
It really is. I'm getting that tattoo, bro.
All right.
Would that be cute?
Any other questions? I'm going to be posting this review in D2L. Your slide ID is in there. This review sheet is in there, but I reversed the alphabet so that you guys can, so it'd be more user friendly.